standpoint, is that, I'm assuming that's more than the 3/4.
It is, yeah. Not. I don't think that it's significantly more because the process is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're talking right now. We're talking about.
So that would be on this piece right here.
Correct. So the initial intent was to, instead of having your normal top cap, laminating thin metal bar just on top of the the guardrail.
So what's my return on my cap?
It's like an inch.
Inch and 5/16 deep, and I think we were an inch wide.
Mm-hmm.
That's out of 11 gauge material, so 1/8 of an inch thick material.
It's 8/16.
Now, if your glass calcs out on its own, then you can put whatever you want on top of it because that's not part of the engineering calculation. That would cover the cover that exposed edge that you were referring to.
Hey Lee, I got a question for you.
Yes.
I don't know if I've done any jobs where we've used 1 1/16 inch glass on a radius stair before. Do you see any issues moving forward with a thicker size glass on that radius?
It'd still be subject to the same standards. The ±1/8 would be on the radius. The one thing that we might want to look at is increasing the distance between the center line and the face of stone, just a small amount, simply because getting 1 1/16 of glass into an 1 1/4 space doesn't leave us much room for grout or even accessing grout. So we may need to widen the stair plates a little bit, but we do that just by increasing the size of the bar that goes between the 2 plates.
Right.
It's insignificant in terms of material costs, etc.
Okay.
So what are we going to do here?
Eric, the job that we're going to send them a photo of is going to be BSF, Bowie, Schiller, and Flexner, I think.
Okay.
Let's just keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going.
I'm sure at the end
So-
we'll have a series of questions.
And sorry,
Mhm.
have you ever done the kind of just laminated bar on top of the glass guardrail before?
We have not done that because it's always been needed to be considered as part of the structural calculation, and so we've always used the bent cap. One of the things that HIT has asked of us in the past, I think you guys had a job where the DC inspector rejected the naked edge glass, and they basically said, don't sell us anything else that doesn't have a gap on it. So that's something that we'll want to review with the city.
Why do you think that is? I don't know.
I'll have to find out what job it was that you ran into a problem with. It was not with us as a subcontractor, but as far as the shape and orientation of the handrail extension at the bottom, that's not a problem at all. We can accommodate any shape that you want down there with the handrail. You did catch on to something right here at the base. All of our glass, when they temper it, they either have to make the entire light curved or flat. They can't make a piece that's curved and then becomes flat.
So you're gonna have a foot segment that's
Correct. Small piece, 10 or 11 inches that will make up that last piece. But that also gets to the reason that we had moved the posts to the right as close to the riser to get it instead of in the middle of the riser. That is that we're going to have a glass tube right here where it transitions from straight to curved. and there's no way that we can avoid having that glass joint. So we were trying to follow your intent of having the post aligned with the glass joint. We shifted that joint forward so that it would be aligned with the post at that particular location. And at that point, you know, we're kind of committed to having the post be right in front of the riser, as opposed to being in the middle of the tread. So we went ahead and maintained that going all the way down. We can easily move the post back to the middle of the tread and have the glass joints aligned with every other location going down the stair. It's just at this one spot where we transition from curve to straight, we would have the glass joints misaligned with the post there because we have to have this piece curved and then a joint straight.
Yep, got it. I think you do that.
It would only be the one spot.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So we're gonna put the post in the middle and
Post in the middle. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent. Well, we'll do that for every spot except for at tread 16, where the post will be in the middle and the glass joint will be at the transition from curve to straight.
Right. And it seemed like maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but it seemed like some of the post locations, or it might have been you had more posts than what we had shown at our elevation.
Generally, that's because we're trying to meet a structural load requirement. We can generally go to about 4 feet. If we go beyond 4 feet,
Okay.
yeah, then we have to stiffen the handrail posts. When they're done from, I think this is all 11 gauge tubing. And so we've got an insert in it that has to extend up at least 12 inches above whatever the walking surface is, the walk line. So in this case, because we're moving them back to in the middle of the tread, we've got to get up half the riser height and then the 12 inches.
Okay.
But if we extend them any further than that, then we've got to go to like a solid bar post instead of the tubing, which gets tricky because then we've got square edge bar with a round edge tube, and we're trying to make it all look the same.
Okay. All right. I think we're going up to 5 feet, so that makes sense. All right.
And same was true on the outside. You know, like I said, we have no problem adding more posts to meet the structural requirements. But if you go 4 treads on the inside, that's our 4 feet. If we go 4 treads on the outside, we're getting out closer to 6 or 7 feet just because the treads are wider. So we've got to put more posts on the outside than on the inside.
Okay. So realistically, if I wanted to post on the outside, you wanted to post on the inside, I would almost have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I would do 1, 2, put a post, 1, 2, put a post.
That's correct. So we basically have a 2-to-1 ratio for the outside and the inside.
Okay.
Which would be fine. We can add a few more posts. I think that's how we currently have it. Have the rail piece of the stair drawing. I think that's currently how we have it.
I feel like you kind of want them to line across now.
Do you want to?
Okay. Yeah. So we'll just walk down and do that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The other thing, while we're just talking about the handrail posts, so your connection piece for all the handrail posts, because you're essentially doing a tube in like a sleeve.
There's a bar sticking up, and the tube will slide down top of it after the cells.
So all of your connections are at the bottom, countersunk screws.
Correct.
And then can we have them so the screws are on this face?
Now that we've pulled it away from the riser,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Perfect. So if I'm walking up the stairs, I don't see any of the fasteners.
Correct.
Great.
And the purpose of the fastener is not structural; it's just to hold the post down tight.
Right.
So we can put them all below the risers.
Okay.
So even coming down the stair, you might see the top one, unless you're standing right on top.
Okay. Makes sense.
And I think think that's it for this page. We're aware of RFI 16 there.
Well, we did have a question. There's a comment related to matching up with these mirror joints. I don't know if we've seen a detail or a drawing that we could go off of. Do we want to talk about that?
That is, so that's for the the opening detail, right? This piece right here.
Looking at B101 or E101 now, Eric.
Okay.
So we glass. So what we said was it's essentially it all relates to the paving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really coordinating with the level 12 paving shops is what you need. But what we had said was, so
we're looking at glazing drawings, Eric.
right.
We'll pull those up in a second.
So this is the elevation of the opening detail. So there's a paving joint that essentially starts the opening detail on this side.
Correct.
So we said 4 stone pavers
Okay.
this way, and then that's where a glass joint is, and then another 4 stone pavers. That's where a glass joint is. This comes out to roughly like a fraction less than 10 feet. That's the biggest one. This one's a little smaller than 10 feet.
Okay.
So that's the sort of intent with the guardrail.
So roughly 2.5 foot lights. If we're getting four pieces of glass, 4 joints in that 10-foot space.
We were saying, can you do it in one piece, a 10-foot piece of glass for a guardrail? So this 4 stone pavers, that would be a single piece for the guardrail.
I don't think that we can span 10 feet with a single glass light. And again, the limitation there is that when the light breaks, will the remaining light still hold the 200-pound point load? The good news is we don't have to do 200 pounds with the safety factor. It just needs to do 200. But even if you went with that thicker glass, the cap rail doesn't calc out over 5 feet. That's if you have glass with the stainless cap on top. If you get rid of the cap rail and do the 2 half-inch pieces that are laminated together, you break one of them, the remaining piece will calc out for 4 feet, but it can't go to like more than 5'4", I think is the max that we can do.
So if we say instead of 4 stone pavers, we say 2 stone pavers, puts you at plus or minus like 5 feet.
We'd be really close, but I mean, it's possible that we can do that. One of the things that we did, actually, you were mentioning Fish and Richardson. They managed to get 6 foot, maybe even 7 foot glass lights. And what we did there was we took that cap and we put a high KSI steel bar that was 1/2 by 3/4, I think, up inside it. So that it still had the same appearance, the same cap, but if the glass light breaks, we can span about, I'll have to check and see, I want to say it's about 7 feet. Okay. And if you're willing to accept a larger cap so that we can put a larger bar in there, we may be able to get to 10 feet. The problem that we then run into is that normally the glass comes in later in the project, 10 feet by 4.5 feet, I have a hard time getting in an elevator.
Yeah.
So how do I get that glass up to the 11th floor?
How big is the elevator? I mean, it's big enough to accommodate that because
I think
we have glass walls there.
Right.
Okay.
That will fit the elevator. 10 feet by 4 feet will fit the elevator.
Okay.
But yeah, sounds like we got a lot of work to do to figure out how that's going to calculate.
Right.
And you're going to end up with a much larger top cap.
Yeah, that makes sense. if we can make the roughly 5-foot module work, I think that would be the preferred solution.
I'll check with our engineer and see under each condition what the max length is, and is that something that I can just provide directly to you so you can communicate and you guys can choose based on that?
Okay, great.
We're back on E101, Eric.
I'm following.
We have no problem continuing this over. The only thing is the shoe won't continue over.
Yeah. So that was kind of my question on that. It might be easy to look at the elevation because
on E104, Eric, detail, or actually, section, elevation E, and with the post out there.
So you essentially just curved it above.
Correct. Although I understand we've got some buildup for the floor, we can curve it and put it over the concrete so that it is below the floor level. Yeah, that is not a problem. Okay. As far as the thing that we're asking about the post here, if we have to have the cap, then I've got to support the cap somehow. And the only alternative we can think of to having a post is to attach it to the curtain wall, which my understanding is that's never going to happen because it invalidates the weatherproofing.
Yeah. Also, we can miss the volume. So
Yeah, it's not right.
Now, if we engineer so that the cap goes away, then with the smaller lights, then we can't get rid of that. Well, actually, yeah, we should be able to get rid of that post because as long as it's under the whatever the critical length is, then that still works.
We'll just have to take a look at it and see what the engineer says.
okay, that makes sense. So this kind of comes back to whether or not we have a cap.
Cap
Yes.
dictates a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What else on this guy?
With that, we understand the need for the guardrail joint locations to coordinate with glass and stone there. And I think we're good with what's happening up here too. Eric, anything else on E101?
No, I didn't have any other comments on B101.
Okay. Go to on this elevation, we understand we're going to have one additional light down here. We're going to extend the handrail to this that follows the approximate contour of which you guys have shown in the plan. It's going to pull all of the posts to the middle of the treads. You're going to have all the glass joints aligned except for this one. This one can still align. And we can radius the glass. The only thing that we're going to ask is that actually the glass and the cap, we can both radius here and here. The only thing is that at this location, we introduced the radius at 42.5 inch height. One little spot for about an inch where I drop under 42 inches. So I'll probably raise the whole thing to 43 inches so that at this point, when I give you the radius, I'm still over 42. Just don't want someone to pull a tape at the top nosing and say 41 7/8 and tear it out.
So, I asked Donnie to join us just briefly. I was kind of hoping to wait to the end of the meeting to go through, but there's just a couple of things here that were tied and we just wanted to go through. So specifically, Donnie, it kind of talks about this introduction of the cap rails as it comes down the stair. If you could just briefly go through the thickness and the thing one more time, so we understand where this
Sure.
is going.
So from an engineering standpoint, our guardrail has to withstand a 200-pound point load in the event of breakage of one light of glass. In case of laminated glass, I have two lights there, so I can break one of them. What remains still has to meet that 200-pound point load requirement. So with the glass that we've got, the 3/4 inch plus or minus with laminated, we basically have 3/8 on each side, and one piece of 3/8 won't meet that requirement.
So 1/2 that program would be.
Right.
So you have a couple options here. One is you keep it thinner, right? You have the 2 3/8, but I would have to have a continuous cap. Now, right now, we're trying to do an ornamental piece on top there, right? But I'm not even sure we figured out how that gets attached. But right now we do have metal there, and I think that was to hide the laminated piece. Right. So if we have a piece of metal there already, you just go ahead and say, I'm going to incorporate it as a structural component. The only other option would be is you have to increase the thickness of the laminated pieces so that one was strong enough by itself. Then that piece of glass gets thicker, and I got to be honest, I got a little bit lost on what it does to the shoe. Obviously, the shoe has to get bigger.
We just widened the stair, the structural part of the stair, so that we can fit the thicker glass down inside of it.
So it's raised to what?
So the 2 pieces of glass, the question is how much thicker is that?
Each light is 1/2 inch tempered, and then it's got a 1/16 inch interlayer between it. So the total width is about 1 1/16 inch for the piece of glass. And at that point, you get rid of the cap.
DC. Why don't I have this issue in terms of the thickness?
Because all of those stairs have the handrail under it, where they have the top end.
Right. In the case of the stair, where I have a handrail,
Yeah.
I don't need a cap, because when the glass light breaks, the handrail meets the 200-pound point limit. It's from this point forward around the balcony that I have no more handrail.
That's where we asked the question. Handrail. She said no. So we have 2 choices. We continue the handrail across the top, or we thicken this whole all glass. Because we can't just make it thin glass where I have the handrail. That's so
I mean, it would be physically possible. So, and I'm sorry. So going down the stair right now, we have the handrail that allows us to not have a cap. Right. So what did our drawing show right here?
we didn't have a top cap. We didn't have a structural top cap. Somehow they got away with it at the office. So they just had the laminated pieces around it.
Yeah, my guess is it's a really good piece of thicker.
So they got away with it by saying the second half was supposed to come.
I don't know that he wasn't involved in that project, but that.
Okay, got it. Is there another problem? I may not know how to solve it right now. I can solve it shortly.
No, I just only because it starts to it's all kind of a domino effect, right? You have the glass cap.
I would recommend we take the handrail off. I would keep the glass thickness the way it is. And just increase. I mean, I'm going to go from a 3/8 piece of glass to 5 piece, 1/2 inch.
We're going from 3/4 to 1 1/16.
Yeah.
Right.
On all of it,
Correct.
all the way up.
If you want to keep it all the same, you could make a transition from size, but aesthetically wouldn't.
So that's a number because that's not an inch. Or I could
So-
continue
so-
the handrail detail we already have for a certain length and keep everything else the same. Exactly the same.
Right. If you put the handrail all the way around the balcony opening, then I think we're done.
We have the detail to be able to. It's not like
It would just be the same.
So as that, just so we keep going, can we go to the elevation of that piece of top? Because we were asking for some really big pieces of glass.
the handrail's not connected to the glass. The handrail's actually
3 stairs.
I know, but if we're still asking for some big pieces of glass. But
Oh, you're talking about the guardrail?
Yeah.
So what we had originally said was 4 stone papers, so it's a single piece of glass with guardrail, which is roughly 10 feet.
That's what I want.
you can't do that.
Can't do 10 feet of glass.
Well, we can if we put the handrail around it.
Right. I believe that if you've got the handrail there, which is providing the structural support in the event of glass breakage, then
That's why
you should be able to go to 10
because
feet.
it has this domino effect.
If we like to go with the glass as being the handrail with a top cap, then that glass can only be as much as 5 feet wide.
Because I can't calc out a 10 piece.
Okay, well, that helps me with my original. That reinforces is there another issue?
Now, the last question was, so essentially the span between the posts for the handrail and the stair is roughly 4 feet. So the inside portion of the tread is roughly a foot. The outside portion, I think, is like 20 inches or something like that. So the question here was, do you do on the inside, you do a post every 4 feet? And then on the outside, do you do it every 2 treads? So you're still, so you're hitting the line.
That made sense to me.
Yeah.
2 to 1 on the post.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then this, if we do the,
In terms of how many posts did we originally have?
you're probably adding like one post, if any.
I think it's pretty minor, and I think it's what we can do.
Okay. But then if we do the handrail around here, that means we can eliminate the post at the end of the guardrail, right? Yep.
That's correct, because it's really only carrying the cap out there.
Right.
You do away with the cap, don't need the post.
Okay.
You still have a handrail post, but
Great. I think that was it.
Do you want to just make sure we understand all this kind of stuff too?
Yeah, we can.
We should do it all.
Okay.
there was an issue with the glass logos too. We just need to get a letter saying that we can install the glass without the logos. That's from whatever.
It's as much the logos as much as the UL.
Mm-hmm.
We provide that, or
We have to get that, I believe. I think we need the letter from the manufacturer stating that all the glass will be supplied,
Tempered and
tempered
laminated.
and laminated,
Mhm.
and then Inspector DC signs off on
Right.
it.
And then you had a lot.
Yes.
Alright, so, let's keep.
One other thing was you had requested a 1/4 inch gap on the glass, and we unfortunately this is all under standard CGI tolerances. So any piece of glass, if we tell them that's going to be 4 feet, we have to accept anywhere from 3'11" to 7/8 to 4'0" and an 1/8. You can imagine 2 lights that are an 1/8 of an inch over. You now have a tight seam on that piece of glass where you had a 1/4 inch joint. The reason we go to 1/2 inch is because if those gaps are 3/8 to 5/8, as you go down the line, we can kind of shake that out a little bit and it's not as visible. But if you use 1/4 inch, basically I end up having to discard glass that I can't reject. Okay. Eric, help me out. What am I?
On this page?
I think we're on E102 right now. I don't think we've got anything else.
The only other comment that we had addressed on the bullets was for the mock-up. I did go ahead and list some samples that we were anticipating on getting. If we're going to provide a glass sample, we just need to confirm, if we're sticking with, the size that was originally designed, or if we make a decision to go to a larger glass, we just need to know that so that we could give you a sample, and then obviously we would give you a sample of the top cap as well whenever that gets firmed on approval. And then
I would think by later today or tomorrow at latest, we're going to know which way LSM would like to go.
Okay.
It's going to be with the thinner glass without the top cap and the handrail continuous. But we'll confirm that.
I just want to go through, and if there's anything
Yeah.
else I need to tee up based on this meeting.
Yep.
we'll know.
Gotcha. Okay, what's next?
I think the only other thing that initially was a consideration was the transition from the 2-inch wide stair stringer to the 3 1/8 inch wide aluminum shoe. That was going to be an issue when the inside top edge was exposed, but you added the note on here to put the same polished bar on the inside that's on the outside.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the detail where the guardrail hits the base is consistent throughout. So I just don't want to see a change in the actual shoe construction right all through it, which it sounds like you won't see.
There will be no visible evidence of it.
Yeah.
Once we put the grout in and caulk over it, then we'll be cladding on top of that. So as you look down the glass, it should look consistent all the way, even though we're using a different shoe.
Right.
With no more visible evidence of that shoe, that shouldn't be an issue.
And just so we're on the same page, this. So this stringer detail right here, you have your steel plates, right? And then the stone on the inside is essentially put right onto the side of your steel.
Mhm.
Then the intent is when you get to the top of the stair where this transitions from the vertical piece to just regular flooring, the stone would stop at the same point. So you still have that same strip going all the way through. I just want to make sure that for this portion right here, the stone stopping short so you have the same amount of exposed piece that you're then cladding over, right?
That's correct. And so we're actually going to reduce the thickness of this down to an 1/8 inch. We're going to keep an 1/8 inch on the other side as well. So it'll be just a thin strip that's an 1/8 by 3/8.
So do you do that? I guess sequencing wise, do you do that work before or after the stone floor is down?
I will coordinate with HIT to figure out what's going to be the best sequence. Obviously, we'd like to do it first and get out. That might not work best for the finished product or for both. So,
Okay. Just because I assume that the way you put it down or the extent of the metal you put down would be different. Like if you did before, you could, in theory, do a slightly larger piece of the stone just sits on top versus doing it thin.
well, and if we go and look at the other balcony rail shoe, the prefabricated, maybe. Here we go. So here I am definitely planning. I can't put it as tight to the glass as I could on there's no aluminum here to support it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to put something underneath it to hold it. Now, if that's a wider piece of 16 gauge with my stainless steel on top, then I'll do that. And I just screw that down, countersunk screws. But that's basically what we supported, so that this ends up looking the same going all the way across.
Okay.
But we're still talking about keeping the stone back from that machine piece. Is it going to be the polished piece? Is it sitting below the floor level, like what's shown here?
The
Both
stone.
sides. So the stone comes up to the new polished piece and stops
Correct.
there.
Yeah.
The polished piece is set down from
Yes.
the stone. Okay.
So it should be the same thickness that you have for the stringer.
Correct.
Because the stone on the stringer piece is purposely above your metal detail,
Mhm.
like plus or minus 3/4 of an inch,
Mhm.
because that's the same material thickness for this floor.
When you get up to the
Yeah.
balcony.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay. Anything else?
Do we need to talk about the detail for the balcony shoe? We did have, there was a question in there or a comment on there from the engineer that we saw, talks about a custom shoe. What we drew was just the regular buyout product. We didn't believe we were going to have any issues with that. Lee, maybe you could elaborate.
Right. Well, I mean, based on what we just discussed, we're basically covering the shoe so that it's no longer visible.
The main concern was that the finished product is consistent.
Right.
Which, I mean, as long as you do that because you're cladding it, I don't think there's any sort of issue with that.
Yeah, so we can still use the buyout shoe, Eric. And as far as using the 3.5 versus the 3-inch angle, quite frankly, we have done in the past, the shoe can overhang the angle by up to 1/4 inch and still calc out. Dave has permitted that. So if we put a 3 1/8 inch shoe on his 3-inch angle, that would still be sufficient. We just can't hang over more than 1/4.
Gotcha.
Then I think we already talked about this.
I think so.
So in theory, if we go to the handrail solution, 10 foot, a little less than 10 foot, and then you can still do this guy in an 8-foot piece.
We're going to make sure that we can do that 8-foot piece. Yes.
Okay.
So just to confirm, it's my understanding that we're going to look into making sure this rail system works, keeping the same glass, and seeing if the standalone handrail going all the way around is a viable option to not have the top cap that we have drawn. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then if it does work and that is a viable option, are we still wanting to put that metal bar on top of the glass?
No.
Okay.
You know, the only thing that I can think of that our engineer may have an issue with is that in those instances where we went over the 4 feet, we had the cap with the higher KSI bar at the top. If we're getting rid of the cap, I probably cannot go over the 4 feet. In order to get to the 6 foot, 7 foot, etc., he had a cap with a bar on the inside. So we're looking at it from what happens if a light breaks. If you look at it from before the light breaks, I apply the point load to the top. How much? We haven't done this with the 3/4 inch laminated glass before, so I just have to find out how wide can I go with that single light before I fail the 200-pound load.
Okay.
You know, the handrail covers the breakage, but without the breakage,
Got it.
how wide can I go? And I'll have that answered today.
Great. These guys, did you have anything on the actual stair that you?
We're looking at the returned as noted stair, Eric. I don't think we had anything.
Yeah, they weren't really noted. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have any questions. I think we reviewed it a little bit. And from what I saw, I think everything on there is good for us to move forward.
Okay, great.
All right,
Easy enough.
great.
All right. Shall I?
Yeah, we'll get back to you about those couple of things we talked about.
Okay. Did you want me to stay for stone? Or?
Or wouldn't hurt. You don't have nothing else, Lou?
I did have a question that we can make the show on this, but there was a discrepancy. We discussed in our meeting on site about the fact that the post is no longer in the center of the tread. Has that been signed off on there?
Well, we've moved it back to the center of the tread.
Okay.
Minus,
I mean,
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, even on the top where it's not going to align with the glass.
There's one location where the glass joint will not align with the post.
The only thing, we basically, they had a comment about us coordinating post location. And if they're in the center of the tread, we're planning on field notching to guarantee we're gonna hit everything on the money. I was only concerned about what is the shape of the tread going to be if it's close to the riser as far as that break off, whatever. Just confirm that it's moving out towards the center, then it's not.
Great.
Okay. All right. Part D.
Part B.
Jay, you're up. It's your show. What do you think, Rick?
Okay.
You talk about your bullet points, or
Eric, you can go if you want, or you can stay. Your choice.
I may have to take off here in a minute.
Green or
Sounds good. You can just disconnect.
Okay.
in front of the room?
All right, what's going on?
So this
You saw Jay and you're like, what the hell's he doing?
esteemed group of people hanging around a table with you, and I'm trying to figure out how they got the short end of the stick.
Mario, I wore my special socks for you today.
Did you? I like your tie.
I got my big ass.
Oh, nice. Oh, my kids picked my size.
You fool, don't wear no camouflage in socks.
All right. So what I did when, with the various comments that were on the stairs, I tried to group them by the pages so that when I respond, you at least know where I'm talking about to get you a general idea. Did you all see my response email that I forwarded to you? Are there any of these that when I responded with the email that, yeah, we understand your point, or do we need to go over every single one of these as those responses?
Can I just go through them? So we
Okay.
get on the same page.
That's fine. So you asked the question, why does this stringer against the wall go out further from the inside? Because there's a slope, continuous slope that based on the length of this tread and rise and run, that angle continues, the geometry extends it that far in order to achieve that. If you don't mind having a change in the top of the stringer, we can in fact make these two align. It just won't graphically look like what you drew in your elevation. Interestingly enough, when I scale your drawings, the length of this side of your elevation and the length of this side are in fact different. So even in your modeling, you accounted for in the elevations. So I don't care either way. We need to know which way you want to go with it. It's more important to have that continuous slope visually, or no, you need to have that line across there. The only other thing would be, it would also mean that this trough would take a nosedive change also to match.
So Rick, I would think you would want these guys to hit across. So it's essentially like a full tread.